What's next for the New Orleans Pelicans are big changes coming for the Pelicans. We are here with Yahoo Sports talking about the Pels now that they have been swept, embarrassed the city, embarrassed themselves, embarrassed the fans, spit in the face of the fans for the last 2 months, got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. I like to preface or preface, as most of my friends would say, I like to preface my Pelicans videos with the fact that I have been a season ticket holder for the last 3 years with the Pels. I know we cover the Saints a lot here and the NFL, but I have watched a ridiculous amount of the New Orleans Pelicans over the last 3 seasons. So I am an expert on what I think needs to happen with this team. The Pels are unfortunately stagnant. They are unfortunately a team that you would think with a young core like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy and Zion Williamson, you would think that that team would have gotten better. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, since the Suns playoff series so many years ago, the team has gotten worse. The team does not have a point guard. The team has a center in Jonas Valanciunas who cannot play against most teams because most teams don't have a slow, plodding 1999 style center. So we're a man down there. Half of our roster doesn't even play. The Matt Ryans of the world, the Cody Zellers of the world, the Robinson Earls of the world, players like that don't play at all. The other part of the roster can't score at all. Najee Marshall, Dyson Daniel, even Herb Jones to an extent, Larry Nance, Jose Alvarado, they are good hustle role players who play good defense and all of that. But when it comes time to get a bucket, we don't have that capability. Even worse, our star players, CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, absolutely no-showed in the playoffs and the play-in tournament and down the stretch of the season. Brandon Ingram is stuck in a 2005 Paul Pierce-esque NBA where he believes that all you got to do is hit a couple of mid-range jumpers, score 19 to 21 points a game, and you're good to go. Bad news. Players like Devin Booker, players like Anthony Edwards exist, and that doesn't work anymore. We don't have a point guard. It's not good for the Pelicans right now. I don't think their roster is built well. I certainly don't think their roster is built well for the future. This was a team where we said, you know what? Keep the core intact. Let's see if we can progress. Bad news is we've regressed. We went from a playoff team to play-in team to play-in team to play-in team. We are not a playoff team. We are a team that we don't know how to win. The culture, questionable. Do we have an alpha scorer type, like an Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type on the team? I'm not sure if we do. It might be Zion, but certainly without him, we do not. So it doesn't look good for the Pels in their current makeup, but hopefully they make some changes, completely readjust the team. But let's listen to what Dan Devine and Trey Kerby have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see this matchup with Zion Williamson available because he was, and I talked about this last week with Sirat, I believe, or maybe I know Caproom, who knows? I talk a lot. But I saw it where he's basically their only vehicle for break down the defense, collapse it, and then create. Like,
Zion's style is the only vehicle. The problem with the Pels is that it's all ISO. Everything is ISO. Everything is one player gets the ball, dribbles, tries to penetrate. That's it. That's all we have. We don't move the ball around. We don't set screens. We don't set plays. We don't run plays. It's just dribble the air out of the ball, jack up a shot if it doesn't work out, and that's really all there is to it.
You mentioned the difficulty that Brandon Ingram had. Like I think he's going to be seeing Lou Dort in his nightmares. The NBA tracking has it as 11 for 33 shooting over the course of the series. Only drew 2 shooting fouls on Dort, 28 points in more than 35 minutes of them lined up together, as many turnovers as assists. And I think that probably might even undercount the impact that Dort had on that matchup. And then in the absence of Ingram not being able to get off and create for other people, CJ McCollum not able to do the same. I mean, we saw obviously in the late game situation, Case and Wiles putting the clamps on him. There's just wave after wave of these defensive options.
Not even that, but they, like Ingram and McCollum, they just look a step behind. They just look a step slower. They just look like they're not playing the same game. The Pels don't look like they're playing the same game as a lot of the rest of the NBA. They look slow, plodding. I mean, everyone on the team, like Jonas is busy running shuttle. He's running sprints in between at half court because he's too slow to get back and forth. Then you watch teams with big athletic centers and fives who can move all over the place and shoot, and Jonas just isn't that. Then you look at someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander running the point for Oklahoma City, and then you look at the Pels, and we've got CJ McCollum, running the point. Yeah, it's just not what he should be doing, not where he should be. And then Brandon Ingram, like I said, defensive liability, and he was horrible at the end of the season. I think in the game where we got eliminated at home in front of my face, I had a shrimp basket right there in front of me. In that game, I think I had 8 points, and 4 came from the free throw line. So, he's not, whether he was hurt or whatever, but he's just not the guy. He's not, we don't have the guy. We don't have the guy who's going to go bucket for bucket with a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We don't have the guy who's going to be able to get into a shootout with Luka Doncic or Anthony Edwards or anybody like that. And we certainly don't have the makeup of the team that is able to handle a Nikola Jokic or even LeBron James and Anthony Davis whenever we're matched up against a team like that. Like Jonas can't play. The Phoenix Suns, Jonas can't play. The Oklahoma City Thunder, Jonas can't play. And I don't mean can't play figuratively. I mean literally. You go look at his minutes. Some games he had 7 minutes, 4 minutes, 13 minutes. He started, and then Willie Green looked around and said, well, okay, guess we're playing a man down. And that's just bad roster construction. David Griffith, our president of basketball operations, he's built a team that would be great if we were playing the 2007 Spurs. He built a team that would be fantastic if we were playing the Boston Celtics of 2009. Bad news is we're not. Bad news is Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, they're not in the league anymore. The league has changed. The league has evolved. And we have a team that's not built for that evolution. We have a team that's built for good teams of the past.
Only physical mismatch that New Orleans was going to be able to bring to bear was Zion. Story winds up, unfortunately, I mean, we've arrived at the point differently than we had in years past, but we are at the same point of, man, if only they had Zion when it got, in the biggest games that mattered, would have.
Yeah, Dan Devine, he has a good point where our offense is basically Zion uses his athleticism to crash and then he kicks it out. Well, curious case of David Griffith, but we don't have shooters. I mean, who's he going to kick it out to? He's going to kick it out to Larry Nance. He's going to kick it out to Najee Marshall. He's going to kick it out to Herb Jones. He's going to kick it out to Dyson Daniels. We don't have shooters. We just have a bunch of hustle players who can kind of play defense and give you 4 or 5 points a game. We're built the opposite way of a team with Zion should be built. And then the one player who we draft, Jordan Hawkins, who can shoot, doesn't play. For some reason, we just don't play him.
I'd love to see that. And then they have got to figure out sort of how they build the team moving forward. It's a really difficult set of circumstances because I think everybody looks at the structure of it and says, the best version of this is Zion flanked with shooters as opposed to Brandon Ingram flanked with shooters, or because we saw Brandon Ingram in that matchup get smoked in the series. But also you're going to try to trade Brandon Ingram now with his value. I would have to imagine that it's absolute nadir. How? Yeah, I mean, Brandon Ingram went from a guy who people thought, he could be the best player on a team or the key scorer on a team. He went from that to now it's like maybe he's your third best player on a team. Maybe he's your third best scorer on a team. So I do think Brandon Ingram has played his last day as a Pelican. But, yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate that his value took a nosedive. But it is what it is. And the team, you have to build the team differently. I mean, I would build the team around Zion, Herb, and Trey Murphy, and that's it. Then you got to go find a point guard. You got to go find completely reinvent what you have down low. Completely reinvent. Right now, our bigs are Jonas Valanciunas and Cody Zeller, and Cody Zeller doesn't play. So when Jonas can't play, which is basically for the last month, then all of a sudden our 5 becomes Larry Nance and maybe Najee or maybe a mismatch with Dyson Daniels down there. And that just seems problematic. And the bad news is we've had 2 years to fix it. This happened last year, and we haven't fixed it. We haven't addressed it at all. We have tons of picks, but we're not moving them around for anything. We're just wasting. I'm not really totally sure what we're doing. So, I mean, it's just bad roster building. I think it's just a bad, I think a strategy for the NBA, if I was in the front office of an NBA team, I wouldn't just be trying to make a good, blank canvas NBA team, because the Pels are a good blank canvas NBA team. I would be trying to make a team that can compete with who I need to compete with. I want to build a roster who can get me through the Western Conference if I'm running the Pels. The Pels have the opposite. The Pels have a roster that cannot play with the teams in the Western Conference. The Lakers aren't even
they're barely even like a fringe playoff team in the Western Conference. But the Pelicans cannot match up with them because of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, because of the problems with Jonas down low. Then you look at a team with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Same thing. We are not built to play them. You look at the Nuggets. We are not built to play them. We cannot play with the teams in our own conference. Minnesota, we're not built to play them. So why are we building a roster that cannot compete with or beat the teams in our conference? Like if you just look at the Pelicans and don't look at anything else, it's like, okay, there's some good players on there. And then you watch them play against the good teams in the West, and it's a complete nightmare.
How they move forward, because they've still got some of, they're still plus picks going back to the Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday deals. They've got young players. They've got options here. I don't know if they can just necessarily run it back with this group. They've got some moves to make, but where they go and how you build out when you're still uncertain about how much you can rely on Zion late in the season, that's a tricky spot to be in.
I don't think you can run it back. I think we've tried to run it back. We have hit a plateau. We are boom. Like we've ran it back now. This is the second season with CJ. We've continually run it back with Brandon Ingram. We've run it back. This is Zion's like fifth year, right? Zion's been in the league for 5 years, and he hasn't played in a playoff game. He's the only lottery pick from his draft that hasn't played in a playoff game. Like we have ran this back. Jonas, we have run back. We have run back the Jose Alvarado, Larry Nance, Najee bench. Like we are the same. And like I said, we've gotten worse. Devontae Graham from the previous seasons, we need Devontae Graham right now. Like we need him. We don't have him. We need him. So some of the players that we lost from previous seasons, we could use right now. The team has gotten worse. And the cute, gimmicky, kind of like depth energy players that we have, like Jose, like Najee, like Larry, those guys are good whenever they are your gimmicky energy players off the bench. Those guys are not good whenever it's 85-85 in an elimination game at home and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is scoring for the Thunder and you're turning to Najee Marshall to try and make a three. That's when they're not good. Najee Marshall, Larry Nance, Jose Alvarado, those guys should not be the guys who you're turning to in the clutch minutes of a season. And that's who we were turning to. I think Najee Marshall went 4 for 7 from 3 in the elimination game against the Thunder. Najee Marshall shouldn't be your best offensive player. You shouldn't be running your offense through Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall should come in, hustle, give you some defense, maybe make a transition basket here or there. That's it. But asking Larry Nance, Najee Marshall, and Jose Alvarado to carry you because your stars are Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are completely absent, that's not going to do it. So if our stars of CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram are going to be absent or off the roster, we need more just overall depth and talent. We need guys who can come off of the bench and score, come off the bench and play. The Suns from a few years ago, whenever Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson were coming off the bench, that was a really dangerous version of the Suns. That's what we need. We need guys like that who can come off the bench and play. And then you go to your energy guys. Then you go to Jose Alvarado, Najee Marshall, Larry Nance, come in, be energetic, get the crowd going, kind of shake things up. They shouldn't be the backbone of your offense.
I think they're definitely in a tricky spot right now. And the way things have gone for the Pelicans, that they need to make changes because the past 3 seasons, they've ended up in the play-in tournament. 2 times they got out of the play-in and then they lost in the first round. All of it without Zion. So it feels like Groundhog Day. Same thing. Something's going to change. I kind of think that was probably Brandon Ingram's last game as the Pelican, just because.
I think Jonas and Ingram are gone, for sure. I think Jonas and Ingram gone. I think writings of the wall, they maxed out their capabilities and they're going to be moved on. So the Pels are at least have to address those two.
The fit doesn't seem perfect with Zion. He can be pretty good with Zion. He can definitely be good when Zion is out, though he wasn't against Dort. You just want somebody who's going to be reliably on the court and able to show up in big moments. I don't know if maybe the Atlanta Hawks are a trade destination for him because they've got duplication with Trey Young and DeJounte Murray. I think Murray could be solid for the Pelicans, but they do have all these picks coming in the future. They do have young players who are talented.
Do we, though? Like Dyson Daniels, I'm kind of done with the Dyson Daniels experiment. As much as I love 5 points a game and virtually nothing else, I'm just kind of over it. Jordan Hawkins can absolutely shoot. Jordan Hawkins is a guy who I think should be in that, like, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, like I just said for the Suns. Like, that's where Jordan Hawkins needs to be. Jordan Hawkins needs to be a guy who's coming off the bench, can absolutely get you a bucket, can absolutely shoot, can absolutely be somebody who Zion kicks it to, and just a 3-point threat. I like Jordan Hawkins, but besides him, unless my boy Trey Kerby is talking about Herb Jones and Trey Murphy as our young guys, but I wouldn't. I like Jordan Hawkins, but beyond that, I don't have much else.
They just seem to me a little slow in this series against the Thunder.
Yes.
So I think they need to up their athleticism,
100%.
and I think they just need to mix it up a little bit because it feels like they've been running back the same team for a few years, hoping to hit the perfect mix where everybody's actually healthy. Everybody is able to play together and build that chemistry, and that just hasn't been the case these past 3 seasons.
And to put a pin in that, like, the thing that I was most interested in about the Pelicans heading into the season, I'd written about them as one of my most interesting teams before the start of training camp, or before the opening of the season, rather, was just like, we hadn't gotten, because of the health issues with Zion, because of sort of staggered injuries for their main guys, we hadn't gotten a consistent look at what it was like when Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and CJ McCollum all got on the floor together for an extended period of time. We got it this season, and it wasn't that impressive, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a mess, actually. It's kind of a mess because they all kind of do the same thing. They all kind of get in each other's way. Like, they don't really complement each other. I don't think Ingram complements Zion. I don't think McCollum complements either one of them. So that experiment of, like, what will this look like, I think it can look better. I think you can put better players around Zion who complement him better and make the team better. Like, it's when you're watching the Pels and you watch Zion and he wants to get in transition and he wants to be explosive and he wants to run and he wants to attack, and then you're watching Jonas, who's dragging with concrete blocks for feet, like trying to get down the court, and you're watching Ingram, same thing, like just so slow and plodding, and it's just like they don't seem to be playing the same game. Zion doesn't seem to be playing the same game as Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's the slow, dribble the air out of the ball, kind of wind down the shot clock and take a mid-range shot. And meanwhile, Zion's like pushing it and driving and trying to dish, and and then it's just none of it fits like the puzzle we thought it would.
It just wasn't. You got the sense that this is never going to be a whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah,
they played 737 minutes together this season, which is, I think, maybe like 5 or 6 times as much as they had previous to this season over the first couple of years of them together, and they got outscored by 25 points in those 737 minutes. It just wasn't clicking and not clicking and operating in the way that they wanted it to. You've got Trey Murphy there, you've got Herb Jones there, you've got, if you want to see what Dyson Daniels looks like in a bigger role, there's more.
No, I don't actually. I don't at all. I wouldn't mind seeing what he looked like in a bigger role for, like, the Wizards or somebody. Just get him off the roster.
There's more players there that sort of need room to grow, and maybe a more harmonious kind of lineups that they can kind of get to. Whether Willie Green will be the guy to get them there, I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, Willie. The thing that keeps me up at night is that Ime Udoka was sitting around and available, and we have Willie Green. Like, I think Ime Udoka is the kind of guy who we needed. The Pels need someone in the building who knows how to win. Someone in the building who can set a culture. I think Zion is the kind of player who wants to be led. I think Zion would really benefit from, like, a Jimmy Butler type player on the team to kind of show you, like, okay, here's how you build the culture. Here's how you do this. Here's how you win. I think Jimmy Butler, I'm just making players up. Like, Jimmy Butler, if Jimmy Butler was on the team instead of Brandon Ingram and Ime Udoka was the head coach instead of Willie Green, I think the Pelicans don't make the play-in. I think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're probably like the 4 seed, somewhere around there, 3 seed. And if you think that's crazy, I want to show you this. So this is from a long time ago. This is from April 5th. So a month ago. The Pelicans have 14 losses of their 32, which they've blown a lead of 10 plus. In 8 of those games, ESPN gave them a win probability over 90%. All right, so you look at this. This is culture stuff. Like, this is don't know how to win stuff. This is rotational issues. This is don't know how to close out games. This is, this is the problem with our players. Like, the reason we blow these leads is because when we shift to our bench, we're relying on Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall and Dyson Daniels and players like that to score when we know they can't score. We know they're 5 point, 6 point, 7 point a game guys, and they blow leads. This is culture stuff. So this is 14 of 32 losses. Let's just take these 8 games where we have over 90%. Let's just take like 3 of them. Let's just take the 98%, the 98%, the 95%, and the 95%. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. If you give us 4 more wins, we're a 53 win team. That's like the 3 seed, right? So to say the Pels should have been the 3 seed is not that crazy. And the Pels, including the play-in tournament, the Pels were 22-22 at home. So, you're not supposed to be 500 at home. So you flip a couple of those home games, you flip a couple of the blown leads. The Pels could for sure be a top 3 seed in the West. The problem is we don't have that coach, we don't have that player who can take us to that next level. We need somebody who can be the adult in the room. We need somebody who can say, Zion, this is how you do it. Like, you do your thing, Zion. You be good on the court. Follow my lead. We desperately need that. Desperately need that. We saw that in the play-in tournament. When we went and got smoked by the Lakers in Vegas, the rumor was that they partied the night before. The rumor was the Pels were not prepared for that game. That speaks to there's not an adult in the room. There's not a leader in the room. We need that on the roster. And then as far as the coach goes, I'm not so sure Willie Green is the guy. I'm not so sure roster-wise or rotation-wise or anything like that. He's been spectacular. I don't think he's a leader. I don't think he's a guy who, there's so many times where a call would go against us and I was screaming, begging for Willie just to get thrown out or to get in the coach's face, get a tech, do something. He's not that guy. He's absolutely not that guy. So, I wish if I was to rank where we had to change, it's the point guard, our big man situation. I'm not going to say like center because I think, in the NBA now it's a little different. But we need a point guard. We need a center or a big man, however you want to phrase it. We need an alpha. We need a leader. We need a guy who can show us how to win, a Jimmy Butler type person. And then we need a coach to get us there too. I'm not saying to fire Willie Green, but Willie needs to become that coach. Like Willie needs to say, okay, I understand the X's and O's. I understand how to do all that, but now I need to figure out how to be a man manager. How do I manage this roster better?
Depending on who you talk to, you mentioned Pelicans or Lakers Twitter. Pelicans Twitter is a pretty frothy spot too when it comes to whether Willie Green is making the most out of what he's got or, could be doing more with it. We'll see where David Griffin lands on that question.
Yeah, there's a lot of rotation problems too with Willie if we're on that subject where you'll see like we're rolling out, Zion, Jonas, Najee, Dyson, and you're looking around and you're like, why aren't there shooters on the floor? Why isn't Jordan Hawkins on the floor right now? Why have we just filled the floor up with guys who can't score? They all want to do the same thing. We just have a bunch of those kind of questions with Willie are big when it comes to Pelican, the fan base.
And moving forward, but they've got the Jonas Valanciunas question. Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall are like important bench guys that are going to be hitting free agency too. Remains to be seen sort of where they go. I think, and then the thing with the Pelicans too, with the Thunder rather, interesting thing from them is like they now get an extended period of time because that's a 2-2 series with the Clippers and the Mavericks, and that's like a knockdown drag out.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole big thought about rest versus rust, but you do wonder, like, for a young team, like, you do wonder if they kind of just want to get back going. Like, we got the jitters out of the way in the first one, and we've been cooking. Like, kind of would they rather just go and get right?
All right, we'll end it there if we're going to move on to Thunder talk. But, yeah, I mean, it's just it has not been a fun season as a Pelicans fan. I mean, I sound super critical of this team, but I guess I am. But I've never disliked watching a team who I root for more than this Pelicans team. I mean, they really are not fun to watch as a fan because they lose at home, they blow leads, they lose games they shouldn't lose to. Like, if you go look at, I mean, here's a fact for you. So like I said, season ticket holder, I go to almost every home game. I have not seen them win at home since they beat the Clippers. I want to say March I want to say it was March 15th. It was when they beat the Clippers to become the 4 seed. So I watched over a month of games, and they just lost at home, lost at home, lost at home, lost at home. I'd skip a game, they'd win it, lose at home, lose at home. The last game against the Thunder, blow the game, don't cover, lose at home. Like, they do everything a team is not supposed to do to have the fan base support them. It's and New Orleans is one of those cities too, where like they want the teams to give effort, they want the teams to show up. If the teams show up, the fans will show up for you. But if you're losing in front of your crowd every single game, if you're blowing leads like this, like a lot of these games, you can go check it out. A lot of these games are at home. That Spurs game, they lead by 15, lost by 2, that's at home. I was at that game. Not only was I at that game, I went to that game by myself because I wanted to see Wemby. And I went, watched it, had dinner at the Blender, had a shrimp basket, and watched them blow that lead. But, like look at these teams, like the Hawks, the Rockets, the Jazz, the Bulls, the Grizzlies. Like these are not good teams. Like these are not teams that you're supposed to be blowing leads by. And then if you look at some of these games too, like the Nuggets game, we're up by 20, we lose by 18. That's almost a 40-point swing. It's a 38-point swing. Grizzlies lead by 24. And I'm pretty sure that was at home. I know one of the Grizzlies games was at home because I watched John Morant hit that layup at the buzzer to win it. Lead by 12, lose by 15. It's a 35-point swing. Or 27-point swing. You look at, a lot of these are like that. It's just, they got to shake it up. The fan base is tired of them. They really are. Like I sit next to a guy who has been a season ticket holder since I have been. He's been a season ticket holder before me, but he is a diehard, tried and true. Like he doesn't miss a game. He was not at any of the play-in games after the first one. And he wasn't at any of the playoff games. Just sold his ticket. Just sold his tickets. Done with it. When we were down 3-0, on the way to the game, I was asking the guy I go to the games with, I was like, have you ever felt something like this where like there's just you almost aren't even rooting for them. You're just there to watch it. You're there to watch us get eliminated. No one was rooting for them really. No one was like, oh yeah, we can come back in this series. Yeah, we just got to get one here. The vibe is just a disaster. The vibe is just a mess. So I hope they shake things up. I hope they shake the roster up. They need to, because it is not fun to watch. It really isn't. It's not fun to watch as a Pelicans fan right now. And I hate to say that. I hate to say it because I support the team. I wish they were better, and I hope they do get better in the future. But let me know in the comments below what you thought about the Pelicans season, what you think they should do in the future. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.